Hi, folks. So this week's episode is a little bit different. We had an episode plan, but as we did our usual prep with our amazing producer, Michael, we found ourselves gripped by discussions of TikTok going before US Congress, and the rabbit hole of social media followed. Enjoy! I'm Lola.
And I'm Mamuna. Together, we have a combined 35 years of experience within the tech scene in North America and Europe.
We talk about the highs, the lows, the WTFs of navigating the technology industry and answer your questions about navigating tech careers.
This is Lost in Tech.
I agree with you. I feel like there are some real questions to be asked when such a big app comes from an openly hostile place. And like a bit parallel to TikTok, but you've got Jack Ma, who's the founder of Alibaba, having issues because his company got so big and the government, I assume in China, wanted to control it and he kind of resisted. So he then disappeared, was partially exiled.
For a long time.
And now this morning I saw that they're going to break Alibaba up into 6 different companies.
Wow.
And that's a choice he's taken. So I think it's hard not to therefore think, well, what makes ByteDance safe from that kind of government scrutiny? And if they're not getting that kind of government scrutiny in China, does that mean that they're complying with the requirement to provide access? And so I think it's okay for countries to ask question about like, are our citizens sovereign while using this product, given that your home country doesn't necessarily present that principle? But when I like the clips I've seen from the Congress hearings, it's like, come on. It's like I just spoke to Jennifer from Mount whatever in so-and-so state. And she's really worried about her 12-year-old who won't get off TikTok. And it's like, I get it, but can we bring the level up a little bit so we can talk about the real thing? Because it literally
That might be out of their realm, though.
But then
Clearly
why have the
it is.
hearing? Why make such a big deal about it if you can't come at it with from there are no opportunities being presented?
I think it's being too reasonable.
Yeah.
That is my whole issue with it. Yeah. Is just that they had this opportunity to bring somebody in from overseas who is not going to be spending a lot of time in the US and who is actively trying to give portions of the business to the US. You're not going to get this opportunity again. And that line that you just gave, like, I wish that was the underlying rhetoric of what the hearing was, but it wasn't. And all it was this long 5 hour slander of TikTok, this app that most Americans are using.
Exactly.
Was it meant to deter Americans from using it by highlighting a bunch of issues? Maybe, but it more so sounded like they were just trying to push their own ideas out into the world so that they would become viral TikTok clips.
I find that that's probably how they approach most of their hearings anyway.
Yeah.
Like they're pretty superficial. What I thought was interesting, I did not watch any of the clips, but what I did see on TikTok was clips of the CEO in the US talking about how he was preparing to go to Congress. And I thought it was interesting how TikTok was doing its own sort of campaign, pre-campaign about it, getting their own clear messaging out. And Congress just failed to match TikTok in its own space. And so I agree with both of you. It was a missed opportunity.
It's also, there was, I was recently listening to a really great, I regularly listen to the New York Times daily podcast called The Daily, just because it's fun. And I found my podcast news consumption a little bit more palatable. I'd rather have like one story a day of news as opposed to like watch an hour of a news show and all the weirdness that comes with that. But they were talking about some climate studies that the government had done. But there was a line that came through, which was study after study has shown that it is easier to present people with a carrot than it is to give them a stick. So, and the thing I think the problem the US is facing, and I think any nation is facing around TikTok, is by all metrics, it is an incredibly successful and necessary tech product. So you kind of had Instagram and Snap as competitors. But I think if you speak to, like, you know, in the place where we all used to work, if you speak to your average small business, their engagement on TikTok is better. Their audience size is bigger. Their ability to market their products is better. They feel more discoverable. As an individual trying to build a story for yourself, TikTok enables much more exploration of all of the ideas that you want to do. It's fun. It's easy to get into. Yes, it's addictive, but like product-wise, it's incredibly successful. So this stick of spying, I just don't know that it's a big enough stick to stop people from using it. You're going to have to come up with something else. And that's what I feel like they missed with the hearings is they didn't allow him to propose ideas. They didn't really say, what suggestions do you have to give us confidence that, you know, US sovereignty will be preserved and our citizens are safe and not being spied on? They didn't suggest alternative models. And I think that, I hate to say it, the closest we've come to a solution was kind of when Trump tried to get a US company to buy TikTok
Oracle.
US. And I mean, Oracle made no sense to me. I have zero reasons to understand why, like, old school DB company wants to buy social media, but hey, relevance and all that. But that's probably the most sensible thing to do, is to break it up and create gates. Or like the EU has done, again, I talk about the EU being great in some ways with some of these laws. They have implemented a lot of laws forcing companies to keep data on European soil. So instead of using data centers offshore, it's like if it's in relation to a European citizen, it has to stay on European soil. And that has forced a lot of policy reinvention from like Google and Facebook, and it enforces a level of control that I think is like much more solution oriented than what I saw the US doing. And I was like, the politics of optics is bullshit. And that's basically what they did.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking at a product so successful and you're going to say, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, then what are you saying is good, right? Exactly. And so if you're talking to businesses who have found great success in marketing their products or reaching and engaging audiences, and you're going to take that away, what's the alternative that even Congress then is solutioning or providing if they're in that space? I think that also is missing that thoughtfulness to even acknowledge the fact that there has been success on the app and that they are doing something to match the reach TikTok has for those, like for whoever, honestly.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate here, but do you ever feel like there is almost like, you know, when it's cool to look down and punch down at something? Like, I feel like the West has a really good time punching down at social media.
Yeah.
It's not highbrow enough. You know,
Yeah.
It's not intelligent enough. We're not occupying our minds with literature and classical music. It's just social media.
Yeah, but you look at the conversation around it, and I wouldn't say that it's highly intellectual.
No.
So I don't know. I almost feel like part of it is that they don't maybe understand it.
And I think that's it. There's a complete lack of understanding. There's a lack of knowledge. If we go as far back as even the Facebook hearing, there is a very similar kind of feel, but there was a moment where they let, I believe it was Alexandria, I forget the whole name, AOC.
Yeah, Ocasio-Cortez.
That's it. Thank you. They let her ask a bunch of very researched, very targeted questions to Facebook that was asking a lot of what people were already curious about. But on a much deeper level. They didn't let anybody do that in this one. They didn't let anybody research the questions, try and propose solutions, or at least, give space for TikTok to respond. There was a very clear agenda with what was going on here. And while, in the Trump era with Oracle, where the methods and the agenda was a little bit more thinly veiled, you could kind of piece together what they were trying to do with that. This one, exactly what they're trying to do. They just want to shut it down. Right. So it's nothing but slander, not letting them talk. all that.
Do you guys use TikTok?
All the time.
Yeah.
See, I'm not on it.
It's interesting. I was really not hesitant. I just couldn't find like a rhythm for it. And then I love watching like cooking videos, and it's just like a highway of videos in there. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. So I get a lot of dinner ideas from there, a lot of interesting tips on things. And so I find that I don't maybe watch it for like some of the funny like social things, but maybe more so just like educational.
Yeah.
But it's interesting also because those educational things, you know, when my son was first born, I'd find like a lot of like sleep consultants and everyone is just giving you information, but it's unchecked, right?
Yeah.
So you actually don't know who the person is at first that's giving you the information. You have to hopefully do your own research to see who they are before you follow it. So I could see the good and bad in that, but you have to be a discerning individual to understand the type of information you're consuming. And I don't think a lot of people are doing that, just consume.
Right. They don't they don't know where to start. I do like how, so the way that I use TikTok is much like you. I use it for cooking and for recipes. I have a full list of saved favorites for all of my favorite things that I like to make. But more so these days, I'm going to be buying a house in the next little bit. I'm going to be buying a condo. Thank you. And most of what I'm consuming or liking or favoriting right now has to do with the financials around it. I have learned so many, not tricks, not loopholes, just like safe things that you can do in order to save for your first house. Strategies, thank you, to save for your first house. And I don't think I would have considered the RRSP options with using your RRSP to go and buy a house, if not for TikTok. I wouldn't have known about the first home buyer's plan, which is coming out April 1st, if not for TikTok. I knew about that 2 months ago. And they just came out with information about it like yesterday.
I need some of your videos because we're in the middle of buying a home and I could use some of these tips. So
this is the thing.
Forward some clips.
Here's what I would love to have, because I think one nugget I will say that I struggle with social media in general is it does have an addictive quality. And the reason I'm not on TikTok is because I know I would never leave and I would never put the phone down. But I also consider the questions around like, how is the younger generation growing up and developing identity, and how do they know what they think when they are being told what to think all of the time? And there are definitely like some really negative things that I'm concerned about with, like, you know, family members of mine who are in certain situations I see them being presented with content that relates to their situation, but scares the life out of me, because I'm like, why on earth are you seeing this as suggested posts? And it you know, so that there's a real sense for me that the algorithms are incredibly, they can be great and they can be terrible at the same time. It's like all things. There is no neutrality in there. What I would love to see is kind of like what the ad regulators started doing across various countries. So like in the UK, for example, if you're posting certain content and it's an ad, so it's been paid for, you have to put hashtag, you have to make it clear that it's an ad. And so creators
do on Instagram too,
yeah,
right?
it's on Instagram. So creators I feel like we need a fact check medium integrated into social media. It's like, if you're going to create content, you have to say, have you done the research? And therefore, can you cite some links? Or is this an opinion and it gets slapped with like an opinion badge? And somebody consuming that for the first time who isn't sophisticated with forming their own opinion would at least be able to see it and say, oh, okay, this is a perspective. Do you know what I mean? It's like in the same way that you read a range of books when you're like in 14, 15 years old, and your teacher's job is to teach you critical reasoning. Argue one way, argue a different way. Why does it tell you? That is not there on social media. And it's not that it's social media's job to educate our kids, but I think recognizing that it does have that addictive quality and there's such a wide range of great and terrible content next to each other, just having some modifiers and qualifiers would really go a long way to making it at least a little bit more critical for people who are consuming it, you know?
Yeah, I think there has to be then some sort of liability, right? So that if you are a person who is sharing
Yeah.
or putting some content out in the world, you are liable to an extent for that, for what it is, depending on whether you're saying it's fact or opinion. Is that likely? But I don't know how you would actually enforce
So
that.
here's the
Quantify that.
or quantify. Okay, so this is now you're getting
Mhm.
into the land of cases, test cases. So
Uh-huh.
in the UK, for example, well, in general, social media and most internet platforms get away with being the kind of the US regulation from the mid to or early 2000s that said that the publisher is not responsible for the content, right? So like
Mhm.
they and there are tests of this all the time, which is like if you, what was the one that went up recently to the Supreme Court? I think it was YouTube was being sued by the family of a victim of a terrorist act. And the family
Hmm.
was suing YouTube on the basis that the individual who was involved in that act had watched suggested content from extremists and terrorists. And so the family were arguing that if YouTube was actively moderating, which they are, content, then they should
Hmm.
have done a better job and therefore they are liable for their son's death. And the arguments against it were kind of like, well, it's good to moderate, but we can't be responsible for all of the content because the algorithm is good and bad at the same time. And you can't, the world where you don't do any moderation and stick with the letter of that concept of we are just a publisher, we're not accountable for it, would turn the internet into a hellhole. So it's like, yes, we want to moderate, but we can't control. And so the family, I don't even know if the decisions come out on that, but it was a really contentious test case. And I think in the UK, there's another one where like the family of a teenager who took her own life also is suing Instagram and saying like, hey, Instagram, you guys are responsible for the feeds and the constant stuff. There is a real question about like who's the responsible party. I think the social media companies would have you say it's the person who created the content and they would lobby
Yeah.
against their own liability. But I also think they lobby against any implications on content creators so as not to make their platforms inaccessible, right? Like if you just wanted to create a
Yeah.
food video and suddenly the FDA could come after you for like recommending something that gave someone food poisoning, you probably wouldn't post the food video. So it's a really
Depending
difficult,
on
yeah.
depending on if I were posting food videos like here's my favorite food, as a lot of people do, right? Versus a here are the 5 foods to eat to prevent cancer.
But then if you're a cancer survivor who changed their
Hmm.
diet and went into remission, and so you were sharing, hey, I survived cancer and I think I did it because I ate these foods.
So that's different too, right? Because it's like, again, I feel like that's like my own personal experience versus a here factually is a preventative thing that you can do
Yeah.
to prevent, And so I still think there's probably like it's not as clear, definitely.
Yeah.
But I think there is something there to opinion versus fact.
I agree.
Where that gets even more difficult is when you can't attribute a certain situation to one video, where it's the entire culture or it's the trend that ended up, in a bad place for some people. How do you put the onus on the content creator when there are 1,000 of them, when there are 10,000 of them?
Yeah. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, of all of the bracket social media platforms, my current favorite is probably Discord.
Does Discord fall into social media?
Well, so this is a question. The way I use it, maybe, but I also use it for work. And so it's kind of in this dual space, but it feels, and maybe this is dependent on which servers you're a part of, which communities you're engaging with. But for me, Discord feels safe. I trust the moderators. I trust the purpose of each server that I'm on. I feel like there are certain communities on Discord where you ask a question and get an answer, I trust that sometimes more than Wikipedia, because I feel like the people responding know the thing that I'm asking a question about. And I genuinely don't know the people on Wikipedia who are editing, whether in, for good or for bad, right? And so I feel like Discord has found a way to be...
it's a community.
It's kind of fostered actual community. And because you have to join a server, you're kind of opting into a theme of content. And then it's a closed ecosystem. So like if I'm engaging with something to do with like NFTs, I'm not suddenly going to see like a Kim Kardashian video. And, no diss to Kim Kardashian, but like her and her makeup just aren't a part of my server experience when I'm interacting with and so it feels like I can be much more narrow and focus. Reddit is similar for me. Like I found a way to also use Reddit in a similar way, but it's like the subs that I follow are very specific. And so my content consumption feels higher quality. Whereas I'd say Instagram and Twitter, who the heck knows? It's like, it's all and everything.
Would you say your social experience is more so focused around information gathering?
No, I would say it's more focused. Well, I suppose you could call it information gathering. Like I see it as, I consider it important that I am aware of things.
Yes.
And I often describe my professional life as like having good taste in tech and opportunities. And so like, I don't know, for the last 15, 20 years, it used to be Feedly. I had like it used to be Google Reader and like, RIP to the best RSS feed service that ever existed. We miss you. But I curated blogs, news publications, and like I would check in with them daily to be like, what's been discussed, what's been said. I used to have a Blogspot blog years ago, and there was like a micro community of like Nigerian Afropolitan-esque diaspora people who all wrote blogs, and we'd all be like first to comment on each other, and like Google Reader would give me the instant update about that. So I've migrated that same behavior into Reddit and Discord. And so when I need an answer, I can find an answer, but I just passively consume a lot of, content around my interest areas. And I feel like it's served me well.
Yeah, because I think I am on socials like Instagram and Twitter and things like that, but I don't actually interact with it too much.
You're a lurker.
Found more and more. Yeah, I'm a lurker, sort of, but I found that even with like Twitter, I might get in there maybe once a month. And more I'm finding that unless it has to do with a specific topic, then I don't really know if I have a need for it. Because everyone's just kind of spewing their own, like I feel like there's the two people. There are people who are consuming content for fun, but then I'm consuming it. But then I don't know if I like consuming it, right? So I'm like, I don't think I want to spend as much time in this space. And so I've just slowly stopped.
The thing about Discord for me is I envision it as equal parts Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, and ICQ.
It's all of the above.
ICQ. The original.
We've gone down.
Where that is where you can get real-time responses to things. And that's where what Twitter is very valuable for me is anytime, I'm watching something live or anytime something happens and I want to get a feel for kind of the pulse of how people are reacting to that, I'll go straight to Twitter. When I'm finished watching Love is Blind on the first day that it's out and I want to get the reactions to it.
I haven't watched it yet. Don't tell me.
Yeah.
But you know what I miss about Twitter? I miss the pre-Netflix days when everyone watched the show at the same time.
Sure.
So, and I think it still happens in certain places. Like in Canada, I don't have a normal TV subscription. So like, I have no idea what happens on like normal TV. But like, I remember you would go for a point and your feed would be consumed with everybody watching the show at the same time as you. And it would be like tweets would just be like, oh my God, hashtag show. And it's like, this tweet said nothing, but it was just a moment. But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Big Brother. But yeah, I definitely think the concept of real time is a big deal. But Twitter has changed for me a lot. So I used to have I've been on Twitter for a long time. I think I joined in 2007, like quite early on. And my profile was always private until I was working at a company where, like, one of my goals for the year, my annual development goals, was to make myself famous so that the company could be famous too. So we'd identified a bunch of leaders who needed to go do personal, professional PR. And so I was asked by the PR agency to open up my Twitter, and I was like, I need to take about 2 months to delete shit. So I did. I like deleted a bunch of tweets, and like I went down so much. And then I feel like since then, I'm overly mindful of the troll energy that you get on Twitter. Like, you're just there trying to live your life, trying to promote something for work, trying to promote something that maybe is values oriented. You're just trying to have an opinion about something that matters for you. And like that, my block finger is high. Like I've not experienced racism on any other platform. I've not had to block anyone on any other platform. I've not had to, well, that's like, I had to block a stalker on Facebook, but it feels too easy for someone to attack on Twitter in a way that I don't feel happens on Reddit and Discord, because moderators and the mods kind of, you know, do they do the best job? Maybe not, because they're not paid. They're just doing it for free. There's a lot of volunteer energy, but it feels safer to share an opinion or to share content and an idea and not be attacked because some bot or troll is scouring for like a pot to stir, and suddenly like you're in the middle of some deep shit for no good reason, right? So I definitely see Twitter. I lurk on Twitter. I think it's an important platform. I feel sad about its current state. But I also think it's got to solve that problem of it. Like, it's too easy for people to come at each other for no good reason. And it just like, it feels boring to watch. It feels, you know, I see it and I'm just like, I'm tired already. So I just like, I come off the app because I'm just like, I can't even scroll through this thread of like back and forth drama. But yeah, it's a real challenge.
Do you find that the same dynamics of TikTok could be found on Twitter in terms of like fact versus opinion and like just the like form help influencing how people think?
Yes. And I think that's why I'm still holding on. Like, I feel like I discover really good threads on a regular basis about stuff that is highly informed opinions from people who I consider credible to have that opinion. And I don't know that I would come across that elsewhere, because they don't write for newspapers. They don't, you know, they're not easily accessible off Twitter. And so you end up feeling like Twitter is a place you can go and hear from like an actual A&E doctor about the hospital situation, or like a genuine immunologist about like, okay, here's how to think about the research studies that have come out about like this. It's not that there isn't disinformation, but the quality of the good information that is available there is high and discoverable. So it's honestly a love-hate scenario for me with all of these platforms.
Yeah. What about LinkedIn?
I mean, we talked about this, Mamuna.
Your face is my emotion towards LinkedIn.
You know what I'll say about that? We've talked about your LinkedIn.
Okay.
I do want to hear about your experience on LinkedIn and what you think about LinkedIn in general. Yes.
I just need a minute, because every time someone says LinkedIn, my inbox haunts me and I just feel sad for all the messages
piled up
that I still haven't replied to.
It's sad.
Oh, God.
It's sad. And it's too late.
It's too late. Sometimes I just got to be like, if you never want to speak to me again, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. It's okay. Yeah, I'm sorry in advance. I think LinkedIn is actually a really good platform in general. Like, I have hired off LinkedIn. I have verified people. I have found... So one of the things that I always use is the algorithm on LinkedIn obviously understands that as a Black woman, I have Black friends and Black family, and therefore it recommends more Black people to me. So when I'm like, when we used to do sourcing parties at my old job, which is like, let's go find candidates that might fit the profile of the job we're hiring for. as the usually only Black person in the team, everyone else would be getting offered white male candidates, whereas I would disproportionately see female and POC in my suggested people list. So you can go to the same profile for a company, and we could probably test this out. Like 3 people will see a different set of people in the right-hand panel of other people in that same company to connect with. And so I exploited the fact that LinkedIn allowed me to source more diverse candidates when we were having sourcing parties or discussions, because it was like, okay, well, let it suggest people who might not otherwise show up for the recruiter who happens to be white. So I definitely value that. I value the fact that it still managed to stay on the side of being professional discourse as opposed to like crazy. So I know people go mad when someone posts their like life achievements or I just had a baby or like my child graduated type stuff, because like this is not for LinkedIn. But I think in the majority, the opinions, the content stays on the professional discovery line in a way that I think is actually quite good and healthy. And I haven't touched my CV in years because everyone's got my CV on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn produces a CV like page format PDF for you. So unless what are you formatting anywhere else other than just putting all the stuff on LinkedIn? So I personally feel like it's a good tool. I'm just sad about the state of my inbox.
Agree. I find it informative but overwhelming.
Yeah.
For myself. It's overwhelming for myself, but it can be informative for myself and others. I think there's that pressure to be present on it and have a voice and share information, which I don't normally do just for myself. Like I don't normally just post. But then even though I'm not actively posting all the time, I still get just an influx of requests and messages. And so I find it like when I get on there, it's just instantly I feel a weight. But if I can get through that initial feeling, I sometimes find really interesting articles, like interesting threads that are fun to go down. But I find that guilt to be a blocker to actively using it in a meaningful way, personally.
Isn't that a shame? Like guilt prevents you from like engaging.
Yeah. But what's interesting is I think that if, earlier on in my career, I would have really have liked to have had a LinkedIn because I think that it creates a platform that I feel like most people didn't have available. So you're trying to break your voice out in this world. And there's so many people, how do you share? Where do you share? How do you build a network? How do you find mentors? And without LinkedIn, that it was hard. And so this like LinkedIn creates this just easier way to connect with people, maybe in a meaningful way. I mean, our inboxes say potentially otherwise, but for people who have more time, it could be really meaningful.
I do wonder about that though. The seekers have the time, but the ones who are sought rarely have the time. And so I wonder about the quality of that. If actually it's just like, it's impossible to, get access.
So I was talking to someone recently who's more junior, earlier on in their career, but not, 1 to 2 years, maybe like 3 to 4, 5 years. And, for them, management is very important and they want to be able to influence. And what I was trying to talk to them about was that maybe building your craft is equally important first, so that when you are mentoring and developing, you know how to really guide the individuals. And so I almost think that sometimes on LinkedIn, we're seeing a lot of the people who have the time are people who are maybe in that space who feel like, I've got it. Like, let me go and influence someone else. And maybe they're not quite there yet, fully baked. So I'd be curious to see the depth of mentorship coming out of the LinkedIn Connect.
Yeah.
I do think that LinkedIn long term, if you're trying to be a mentor, is not very sustainable if you're trying to develop your own career still. But where I think it branches off into a more productive space is where, you know, people who don't have the extra time spend their time on LinkedIn. They maybe talk to 1, 2, 3 people, and then the conversation goes off of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then they develop that relationship off of LinkedIn. So while LinkedIn facilitated that connection, it didn't necessarily grow it. Because you can't please everybody off of LinkedIn. If you're in a space to become a mentor, you can have as much capacity as you have to converse with people, but you can't expect to please everybody.
Well, I think
that could likely be, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I feel like they actually missed out a feature there that I would have said, because the problem with mentoring exclusively through LinkedIn is there is no real matching. It's like if you post and say, oh, I'm open to mentoring people who are interested in blah, you are swamped with people who would love to get that from you. But are you the best mentor for them? How do you know whether you're going to be effective? Is there a way to triage and manage and flow? And I would have loved LinkedIn to do that and serve that need, but they didn't. And actually, I want to shout out a community, a product, and a great founder. ADP List was started by Felix Lee, and he was like in the design industry, and he identified this problem of like, there are people coming up in UX and design, and then there are people who want to help and mentor, and they need to be matched. And so he created this, and it's just blown up, and it's such a great... like he has really great insights as well on what's happening in the industry, because he can see what's happening with connections between mentees and mentors. He can tell you about like regional areas where you potentially could hire talent, because he can give you a breakdown of like where the majority of mentees are coming from and what level they're at. And so you can be like, hey, I need to know, where should I focus my efforts if I want to get like X level people who have these skills? Here's an insight. So I'm really hoping that he continues to soar, but like that feature realistically should have been in LinkedIn.
Like
that capability. App. It's like a dating app, but also it feels, it cultivates an idea of closed community around it in a way that LinkedIn, like I don't ever feel like I want to just message my connections, because I don't use LinkedIn that way. But there are certain things that I do feel like are community based that could happen on LinkedIn, that it doesn't really feel like it lends itself. Like the whole groups thing doesn't work for me. It just feels weird, you know?
What you're describing right now sounds like Discord.
I know.
And that was something I thought about initially when I was thinking about mentorship. I was like, oh, it'd be so interesting to, if I just gathered everyone who's asking for my time, like created a server and just like put them all in there. Got a couple of like some senior folks who would just like pop in and chat every once in a while to individuals. Like that could be a way to just like scale some of the thinking and have maybe like-minded people who are in the same space answer each other's questions, crowdsource questions from one another.
Mamuna, I actually have the answer for you. You just need to become a product leadership TikTok influencer. Like full circle, that's how you scale your impact. It's just put it on TikTok.
Let's put it on TikTok. Yes. And then they'll just DM me. And I'll just avoid.
No, but it's fine. You just create another video. You just, if somebody asks you a question, you just create a video, and then you just create more videos, and then
every question is content.
Every question is content.
Every question is content.
Hey, why aren't we doing that for this podcast, by the way? Should we be on TikTok?
We probably should, right? Like put stuff on there.
Snippets of guidance. I'm just,
full circle.
One more inbox for us. But I think it's, I think like to kind of bring it back to also as technophiles, as we all are in some shape or form, I think if anyone is absolutist about social media right now, it may be like making some career limiting choices in the way that they present themselves. Like I think you can't afford to be all out against something in this era in that way, because again, it's like understand what value does it bring? Why is it so popular? What is driving the growth? What mechanics are at play here? Because strategically speaking, it might be something that you need to consider in your work, right? It's impossible to say, oh, I'm so against it and I'm never and blah, blah, blah. It's like that's it's nice to be in that position if you don't need the work. But if you need the work, you should probably have a much more nuanced point of view about what is and isn't happening in social media.
Yeah, I think also that. And there are always going to be younger generations who are consuming things on platforms that we don't even know of yet. And so it's important that we, as technophiles, are plugged into what's up and coming. Otherwise, you just become people in Congress afraid of the technology that you are unfamiliar with.
So speaking of the ones that are up and coming, have you heard of that app that I think was bought by Discord where like all it is like a rating app for teenagers?
Is this like a hot or not?
Well, I don't know if it's hot or not. I think they actually, it's called Gas. So basically, Gas is a social media platform. It's mostly for young people and teenagers. And the idea is that all you can do is give compliments.
Huh, that's nice.
It's nice, but I think it's still weird.
Compliments to individuals?
Yeah. So you basically just go and like, you follow someone and then you kind of just like say something. You gas your friends up, and you can't really say anything negative because I'm not sure if it's that it prevents you or if that stuff just gets downvoted or like if there's a way of like kicking that out. But the idea is to always.
Is it for a certain age only?
Well, it was kind of aimed at teens. So it was interesting because I was like, what is this? What is this in that like, why would I want this app? Why is this app interesting? Why do young people need this app? Like to me, this was one of those where I was like, I get it. But like if someone gave me compliments all day, I would be so far up my own ass. And also I'd be like, but why? I'm not even impressed anymore because like, is this even real? Do you know me? But that's such an adult interpretation of it. And I was just like, this is the new one on me. I'm not sure about this.
I like that it is counter to the speak your mind about this person in for minors. I'm reading a little bit about it, and it's saying that it's kind of like blind or I guess fishbowl, where you have to like quantify yourself as what school you're in.
Yes.
So it's only people within that community that you're allowed to talk
Facebook
about.
started, right?
Yeah. Where instead of saying, any kind of unfettered thought toward one person, this is just saying, okay, our culture right now is just positivity. We're just going to take all the negativity out. And while as adults, it's probably not a great idea to do that. For kids, I almost think that like there is too much negativity going on in the youth of today. And so to like fully take that out, it might be a interesting way to go. I do think there are a lot of hurdles, just inherent problems with the app, but I guess we'll see.
I don't know if it's geared towards teens. I would say then it has to have like a lot of restrictions there.
But what it does is it has no features, so you can't DM, you can't.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like it doesn't have a lot of functionality that allows obvious trolling, but it does.
I'm not even thinking about trolling.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about people who have access to young children or young.
But this is why it mitigates. It's like you have to prove you go to the school or you have to prove you belong. So I think it's good in that. I actually don't think that risk is as high in Gas because of how limited it is and how bound it is. But that's like, as I understand it, the right now state. For all we know, that'll change.
That's actually Discord.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Never mind.
Wait, read the chat.
Yeah. So it's talking about Discord's safety issues, where in its, as the statement writes, its latest transparency report noted that it disabled 42,000 accounts and removed 14,000 servers for child safety violations during the third quarter of 2022, which is a 92% decrease in the number of accounts disabled compared to the previous quarter. So quarter. So clearly there is a need for something like this where, there's a heavily moderated, heavily focused, and just taking the child safety issues away from Discord.
Yeah.
Which I guess is nice. Like it's the whole YouTube versus YouTube Kids. Like YouTube Kids was created because there was a need to take the kids off of YouTube.
I don't trust YouTube Kids though. I'm sorry.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
I just I have opinions, but I just recently put away the laptop and the tablet and said, no, we're done with this.
YouTube Kids actually is interesting because I observed my niece watching what looked like safe content because the video involved people who were dressed as Disney characters, but it was adult content. And it had been served because the title and the theme and everything else, it seemed like kids content, but it was dark and scary and it was twisted and it was not appropriate for a 5-year-old to be sat in front of. But because it was served as the next video, no one spotted it. I just kind of looked over and I was like, what the hell is this? Grabbed the tablet and was just like, okay, nope, that's not happening. So yeah, I think I'm not sure certain platforms should have a kids mode because I just think the content default is not, they cannot manage what is kid friendly. And I do think that is, it's just not okay.
Especially when there are people out there who are trying to get around those people. Yeah.
Exactly.
And there wasn't Instagram. I don't know if they still, do they do it? Instagram for kids?
No, I think they're definitely 13 plus.
Okay.
A minimum age. Although I'm sure like there are younger kids on Instagram. I'm not sure about TikTok. I feel like there are quite a few younger kids on TikTok, to be honest, doing the dance videos. So I don't know what their actual age.
Isn't Kim Kardashian's daughter on TikTok and like a bunch of other kids?
Yes.
There are definitely kids on there.
Yes.
Who have adult supervision.
Yes. I think so. I'm going to put the kids and parents thing down because there's emotions there. But the other angle that I think is interesting around social media and a personal interest of mine is the idea of like the attention and social graph consumption. So like connect your contacts so that we can find your friends actually means that we like grab your entire address book and suddenly we have a point of view on your social graph. I'm still smarting from the fact that apparently I exist on Facebook and I don't want to exist on Facebook. I full on deleted my account, but I have so many friends who use Facebook Messenger in whose phones I exist. And so Facebook knows who I am, even though I do not have an account with them. They know my relationships. They probably have one side of the conversations or both sides of the conversations I have with people who are using Instagram and Facebook Messenger and all of those things. And I think that's where, again, just talking about like regulation, I feel like how do we allow these apps to exist in such a way that a person genuinely gets to choose to be private? Because they don't give you that as a free option right now. It's like they have to grab all of your information to serve you the thing that they do, but you don't get the option to not give them everything about you, and certainly not about people who didn't choose to use that application. I can't stop my friends from connecting their phone book to another social media company.
Yeah, even WhatsApp, right?
Oh,
we actively
so
use
this is the problem.
It's in the ecosystem.
But WhatsApp still has, I'm not sure what Facebook Messenger does, but like WhatsApp has always had a strong encryption. So I don't feel like my messages are being read. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being naive there.
Who knows? I mean, maybe today, but who knows one day?
Who knows indeed?
Well, one would at least be a little curious on why WhatsApp says all of these things about encryption while Facebook does not. So it's almost like the existence of one invalidates the other. Makes me a little bit more nervous to use Facebook Messenger when WhatsApp is out there saying, hey, we're very good on security. You don't have to worry about us.
Yeah. But I mean, there's like
about all the others.
There's law out in the industry about that. I don't know if you've ever heard the law. Like at the time of the WhatsApp purchase, I think there were promises made that WhatsApp would keep its privacy protection, that it kind of fit Facebook's strategy in one particular way. Somewhere down the line, there was conflict between the WhatsApp founders who became Facebook employees and Facebook leadership. The WhatsApp founders left, but I think Facebook has struggled to roll back the encryption. So it's like, I'm grateful to the founders of WhatsApp for implementing this super strong encryption level that therefore means that it's hard to just go backwards. And I actually like some new features that maybe they're playing with. I don't know if they're available to anyone, but like recently I saw that you could, every time you start messaging a new person, you could set your messages with that person to delete after 24 hours.
I haven't seen that.
So it's really cool, because then if it's a peer-to-peer marketplace purchase and I don't know that I trust this person and I might want to share, like, especially in this crazy banking place, I have to actually share a bank account info or like something sensitive. I don't have a concern that that's just going to stay in that chat forever. It's going to disappear after 24 hours. I had it set up and then I forgot about it. And then I messaged my friend and then they messaged me to be like, you sent me a message, I forgot about it and I didn't get to it in time and now it's gone. What did you say? And I'm like, I don't know. That was yesterday. So it's like, okay, maybe I should switch this off again. So I switched it off. But I like that WhatsApp at least feels like it's doing that. Whereas Instagram keeps trying to get me to download Facebook Messenger and connect my Instagram account to Facebook and do all sorts of other things. That I'm like, no, I don't want to.
They want you to be a part of their ecosystem.
It just doesn't feel like I'd have enough control. And I think that's what I want for all the social media companies to kind of do, is like serve more control, more agency, more choice.
If they're giving more control, more agency, more choice, that means that they're letting go of more. And I think, like, in terms of what they can take from you, I think. And that might be counter to what they're trying to accomplish, potentially.
The problem we have is every single business model for social media is ads.
Yes.
There are no other business models. And so in order to maximize ads, they need more data, more behavioral signals, more information to segment you, to qualify you, to quantify you, and then serve you more ads. It would be incredible to find some different business models or to integrate the kind of tech that allowed ads to exist next to control. And I'm like, it's 2023. We've got AI that is telling you what you need to remember about your own life. I'm pretty sure that if people were motivated enough, we could come up with ads plus control, and we don't have to give up control in service of ads. It's just easier to take control and do that. We've made this show for you, and we want to hear your stories. We have our combined 35 years experience in tech. We have an incredible bank of experts to call on. We are your safe space. So send us your tech challenges and we'll help you create some draft decisions through some real talk.
You've been listening to me, Mamuna Oladipo.
And me, Oyelayo-Pearson.
Edited and produced by me, Michael Bussa, with theme music by 031 Mash.
Email us at help@lostintechpodcast.com or DM us at lostintechpod.